Now, in our first story, the Upper East Regional Security Council has deployed military personnel to calm tensions in the Kasina-Nankana municipality of the region. It follows clashes that have led to the murder of a 75-year-old man. Though the cause of the clash has not been confirmed, residents claim the disputes between the communities of Kandega and Doba are over the siting of a police post on a piece of land there. Correspondent Albert Sori has more in this report read to you.
On Friday, a 75-year-old man was murdered in his house at Kadinga, Apimpingo, by some yet to be identified assailants. Some other persons are said to have been inflicted with cutlass wounds, and a number of houses set on fire in what is believed to be related to a land dispute. The daughter of the deceased narrates what happened.
When they were, it is this afternoon that they started. So when they came, they were shooting here, this house, and they were hiding there, but the children left. So where he was hiding is where they were going to burn. So when they were inside the house, he was trying to escape to burn. And then when he tried to escape, to run away, then they went and cutlassed him down there.
Meanwhile, police have been to the scene and are currently investigating the incident. Here is ASP Kingsley Ada, Navrongo District Police Crime Officer.
That somebody has been murdered in his house at this place. What was the name of the place? Abepingo.
Abepingo, yeah.
Abepingo. So we also have to proceed to the scene for our investigations, and that's why we are here.
Is it a case of a new clash?
Yeah, I think that is the case. I think that is the case. Because not quite long ago, somebody was also murdered around this area. A 75-year-old man was murdered around here. So it is not surprising. This has come as a renewed clash. Yeah.
How long was that when the first one was murdered?
So far, we are still putting the pieces together. We also just heard of it and came. So we have to put our investigative machinery in place.
So putting the pieces together.
We need to get information. We need to get information from people staying around. Yeah.
But the youth of Kadinga are accusing the military of failing to protect them. Joy News is also learning that the assemblyman for Kadinga, where the murder took place, is assisting with investigations. Albert Sori, reporting for Joy News.
Meanwhile, the Upper East Regional Minister Tangoba Abayage says a crunch meeting by the Regional Security Council has been scheduled to look into the matter.
I have a RECSEC meeting tomorrow, early and tomorrow. In fact, if they review and they think that the RECSEC meeting should be held tonight, we'll call an emergency RECSEC meeting. But it will be based on the advice we get from the joint MUSEC and DISEC meetings between these two assemblies. Meantime, I have been in touch with the regional police commander, the beefed up security, the IGP has been informed, we've sent extra security to the area. I'm in touch with the commander commanding the military in the area. We have beefed up military presence. In fact, we have brought military from Upper West, as indicated by your reporter, Albert Sori. We brought security from Tumu in the Upper West region to come and beef up, military from Tumu in the Upper West region to come and beef up security. It is unfortunate that we have had loss of life. But when these clashes come, we have challenges with the security personnel. So we can't push all our security personnel into these areas to be manning 24 hours every day. We can't do that. So once there's calm and then people are going about their businesses, we withdraw a lot of them into other areas that are critical. As you are aware, we are a border region. We have the threat of insurgents coming in. We have the borders are closed. We have to man the borders and ensure that people don't go forth and back. So we are under pressure with our security presence. We have challenges with the logistics. So when there's calm in the area, what we do is that we withdraw and leave a skeletal security presence. It is not true that we withdraw everybody. No. Every day, since this conflict started, every day there is at least a military and SWAT team patrols across the place.
In the northern region, the police say they will later today arraign a polling agent of the National Democratic Congress suspected to have stolen Electoral Commission registration forms. The suspect, name withheld, is said to have filled forms behind the Sandergo EC office during the current voter registration exercise. Now, the superintendent of the police in the area, Kwabna Utio Ichampong, is the Northern Region's crime officer.
Yesterday at 4 p.m. we were called to the office of the Electoral Commission, and then when we went, suspect Al-Hassan Abdullah Mohammed, 44 years, who is a teacher, was handed over to us with 8 voter registration forms. That's Form A1, 8 of them, and other guarantor forms and other documents. So our preliminary investigations have established that he dishonestly appropriated the forms without the consent of the EC registration officer. So we have cautioned him on stealing, because the registration form A1, we are told, is the exclusive property of the Electoral Commission, and it shouldn't be in the hands of any person apart from the registration officer. So we have established stealing. He was dishonest. He appropriated it, and the property which is the Form 1A1 are the property of the Electoral Commission. So he's currently with us. We just took him to the scene for investigations. Tomorrow, Monday, we are sending the accused person. We have just, as I indicated, we just returned from the scene. So we have established our evidence. So we are going to charge him this afternoon, and tomorrow we are putting him before the court.
Back here in Accra, ranking member on Parliament's Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee, Inusah Hussaini, says he is engaging the majority leader and other members of Parliament with the hope of getting the Attorney General to bring a bill to amend the punishment regime for breach of COVID-19 protocols. An offender, per the current law, will pay between 12 to 60,000 Ghana cedis and could spend some 4 years in jail. Mr. Hussaini was speaking on Joy News Legal Affairs show, COVID and the Law.
We don't have the prisons that will contain the number of people who will simply violate this law. And the people who cannot afford a face mask are probably in the majority, and to punish them for not wearing face masks when they are incapable in the first place of procuring one for themselves is probably unfair. Let me hasten to add that during the debate, in fact, when the bill was introduced in Parliament, the Attorney General was of the view that incarceration for a breach of Act 1013 should be between 3 months and 6 months. Between 3 months and 6 months. And so when you work out the penalty unit, that will fall within the bracket, the lower brackets of what the GBA is suggesting, but not the upper bracket. It was in Parliament that some members of the Parliament, against our caution, raised the sanctions regime. And we have seen that what we have done has resulted in egregious violation of Section 6 of the Imposition of Restrictions Act. Today, I am here with the majority leader, and I will prompt him on the sensibilities and the concerns of people in the enforcement of the law.
The General Overseer of the International Central Gospel Church, Pastor Mensa Otabil, has joined health experts to urge the public to take safety precautionary measures against COVID-19 more seriously. Delivering his online service or sermon on Sunday, Pastor Otabil announced that the ICGC will not open its auditoriums despite the easing of restrictions, allowing some 100 people to congregate at a time to worship. According to him, the country still faces a high risk with the pandemic, adding it is important to keep citizens safe.
When restrictions on church gatherings were relaxed in this country, we elected as a church not to have in-person church services. We've had online services since then, and we indicated at that time as a church that we would use the month of June to assess conditions and to prepare. And one of the most important indicators we said we would use to determine when to have in-person services was the end of the coronavirus infections in our country. And since then, we've been monitoring as we prepare, monitoring to determine the right time to have in-person church services. On the 6th of June, just about a month ago, this was the situation in Ghana. We had 9,462 total cases. Deaths, unfortunately, stood at 41, and new infections were around 294. That is just a month ago. Today, this is the situation. We have 19,388 confirmed cases, 117 unfortunate deaths, and daily infections have been in the highs, up to 1,254 on the 3rd of June. So the picture we get is that total cases have doubled in 1 month, deaths have tripled in 1 month, and daily cases have more than quadrupled. With these numbers and the trend that this virus is showing, we think that we cannot resume in-person services, and will continue to have online services. And we understand the burden it places on all of us. We understand the stress it places on all of us, but we think that the risk factors do not encourage us to have in-person services. With the best of protocols, we still face a very high risk, and I just want to encourage everybody. What we are dealing with is not a joke. And we have to be very serious about how we manage this. And we have to make some very tough choices, both as individuals and as a nation. It's going to be tough. It's going to be wearisome. It makes life uncertain, and all of us want predictability. Everybody wants certainty. I want it. And sometimes we think that wishing away something will take it away. We can't wish away a reality. The reality is, there is a virus out there, it's dangerous, and it's doing a lot of havoc. And we must not wait to find out the havoc before we act. We must act so the havoc doesn't happen. And I trust that each one of us, all of us, will just make choices that will help us to protect our lives. Because this is a season we are in. It's not a permanent phase of our lives. Even if it lasts for 1 year, it's not permanent. It's going to pass. And we just have to make sure that if we're going to sacrifice 1 year of our lives just to protect all our lives, then let's sacrifice 1 year. But
well, welcome back. Today I'm Aluna. Today Mamavi is a bit under the weather. So myself and Joseph Akable will take you through the newspapers, do the analysis for you, and ultimately we'll give you some head start to all the things that you need to know as you start your day. Whether you're now waking up from bed or you're already just around your house preparing to go to work, make sure that you stick and stay with us just in case you transition out of the house, heading onto the road to the office. You can join us also on Joy News TV, which is live on YouTube, and also get all the updates on Facebook and then also Twitter at Joy News on TV. As you do all that, I have to say good morning to a sweet young lady of mine, Theresa Simpson. You live in Cape Coast and you're an ardent viewer of the show. You're always loyal to us. We have to say that we're grateful for all the good things that you've been saying about us. And also Andrew Zadugu and the wife Dinah, you are a lawyer with the Attorney General's Department. Good morning to you, Ho, the Volta Regional Capital. If I want to do it, Salifu Combat. Boku, you're the head of primary health care pharmacy at the Boku Presbyterian Hospital. Now, Joseph, have you joined us yet? If Joseph hasn't joined, we'll still try and make time for... Good morning. Yeah, great. Yeah. And how was your weekend, my brother?
It wasn't bad. I crowned it by listening to you on Sunday edition with Maxwell yesterday. Quite an interesting interview. And I'm sure Maxwell will put the podcast out for all to listen to. You share your experiences on radio. I enjoyed you on Top Story and made a good and bad everything.
Yeah, it was a good baptism over the period. I'm sure that over the period we can all get better. We learn every day, don't we? Which of the newspapers should I allow you to do? I think I'll allow you to do the Daily Graphic. If you have the Daily Graphic with you, get it ready.
No, I don't have the graphic. So I have the Daily Guide, I have the Finder, and the Ghanaian Times. So I can do those three. All
right. Let me start with the graphic, and then I'll go to the custodian first. The graphic has on the front page, very bulky, but I'm sure it's because they have the movement plan for the Electoral Commission, very bulky today. So we have on the front page of the Daily Graphic, government injects $269 million in agriculture mechanization. Has an inserted picture of Dr. Akoto, who is the Minister for Food and Agriculture, conducting one, Kobi Asma, the editor of the Daily Graphic, around the tractors. This one is a full one for you, well curled by the Daily Graphic for you to watch this morning as you peruse the pages, so to speak. We also do have the West African Examination Council member countries ready for WASSCE. Exams no longer for only Ghanaian candidates. All right, so it's not peculiar to us. We're in COVID, so everything is different now. Suit against senior minister goes back to High Court. This is interesting, and it's why Joseph will be giving us the latest update, because the Auditor General went on leave. The next day, the acting person said, look, all clearance to you, so you can go ahead. It's quite interesting. So Joseph will share a bit of some insight into what we need to know on the subject. Electoral Commission 2020 voters registration exercise movement plan. Also, there's a second batch. So the first phase was the last week, and now we are in the second phase. So they call it batch 2. It's on pages 33 and 80. You can also find it on myjournline.com, the movement plan. We get the latest updates of COVID. It's quite interesting. We don't have the total, we have the total case count, and then up-to-date recoveries and discharges. And so far, 122 deaths only. I say only, yeah. So let me do the custodian. The custodian, that is edited by my good friend Awudu Mahama, has on the front page, Akufo-Addo self-isolate after exposure. This one too has come under some extreme mix buy-in, if not reaction, following that statement from the presidency about the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Then there was a picture of him self-isolating with his beautiful wife, Rebecca, and the daughters. So I was wondering, isolating with the family. Don't know whether the family is also isolating. So it also speaks volume. You know, pictures speak volumes about, you know, they tell a story. If you go to journalism, because that's what they'll tell you. So Akufo-Addo also direct MMDAs to buy made in Ghana cars, and this one was done in isolation. This directive came in isolation. He's still working, by the way, so you should know that the work goes on while the president self-isolates. NDC agents arrested for stealing registration forms. We've had varied number of these stories. Arrests also being, we even featured one this morning as well. And Joseph, you have, can you do the first two you have, please?
Yes, and so I'll start with the Daily Guide first. At the front page has this story, the one you touched on earlier relating to the Auditor General. it says the Melevo slapped it 167 leave days. Foreigners invade Ghana for voters card, and Auditor General cheerleaders exposed. It also has the story about the president isolates over COVID-19 at 20,000 plus infected. And chieftaincy trouble looms at Asamankese also on the front page of the Daily Guide newspaper. We can do that of the Ghanaian Times now. It has that story about the president self-isolating after close associates test positive for COVID-19. And phase 2 of voter registration exercise commences today, also on the front page of the Ghanaian Times. The back page has a story from Bongo. The district assembly receives 70,000 cedis to fight COVID-19. And Ghana Cocoa Board steps up implementation of PEPS, the PEPs there, also on the back page of the Ghanaian Times, Roland.
Well, so there's a story on the front page of the Daily Post. We don't feature the Daily Post very often, so I decided to. It talks about a story attributed to one professor of epidemiology, very popular for those who tend to read medicine, do science at the universities in Ghana, especially University of Ghana. Professor Fred Newton Binka. Professor Binka is somebody we all know very well, especially for those who tend to do health reporting. And he says Ghana will hit 50,000 corona cases soon. And if you read the story, it tells you the reasons why he believes, based on his observations, that we could reach that mark. We're already past the 20,000 mark, up-to-date cases. And then over 200 doctors won EC again after continuing with the voter registration exercise as corona cases rise. And there's a second letter written by a group of doctors. And we also, it seems to be cautioning the Electoral Commission that because of the ongoing registration exercise, we could see a surge in cases. But it's also more simply because many of the would-be applicants, or what we're calling the registrants, as we tend to use that conceptual word in the media, don't seem to be observing the various protocols as have been enshrined and also were promulgated by the Ghana Health Service as well as the allied institution. A false alarm. MPP gets Ghanaians arrested, claiming they are Tokoli citizens. And this one also gained some prominence in the media. Now, let's do the Go Street Business. The Go Street Business has on the front page, FDI downward trend worsened by COVID-19 impact after inflows dropped by some 22% to $2.3 billion in 2019. And this is expected because inflows basically means that there could be foreign direct investments, there could be some level of other forms of inflows as well, whether they are grants, there are also some budgetary support loans or bonds that would go into the international market for which are unavailable or will not be patronized or will not be forthcoming because other countries, our multilateral donor countries, are also suffering. SEC, that's the Security and Exchange Commission, to introduce crowdfunding in Ghana, globally thriving financing mode for informal sector with huge impact potential for Ghana. After to take off January 21 instead, supposed to have been mid-year, hasn't taken off, so I don't know whether we're indeed for some troubled time. The coronavirus seemed to be biting hard on many of the things we're doing. Let me do the Dispatch. And the Dispatch has on the front page, 2020 elections, runoff likely between MPP and NDC. I wanted to say Uncle Ben. Hey, once again, but it's on the front page. Uncle Ben, good morning to you.
Roland, is it not quite obvious if there's going to be a runoff? It's going to be likely between the MPP and NDC?
Yeah, but to predict it is a big thing. I mean, that's knowing that his last prediction was, we look at the margin of errors, was just a bit way off, yes. Even though predictably he's been predicting since 1996, I should say. So let me just read a caption again, Joseph Akable. Maybe you didn't see it well. So 2020 elections, runoff likely between MPP and NDC. When I saw it this morning, Joseph, what came to mind? I said, hey, Uncle Ben, was assemblable. Coronavirus ready to kill those who underestimated Rawlings, and the former president has been trending the last couple of hours since he had an interaction with Kweku Sechiado on a sister station. We have mudslide disaster looms at Wager, Ghana Highway Authority. And those are the stories I would want to take a look at for now. Joseph?
Let me just end with the finder, then we can do some details. The finder says EC sets October 5 to 9 for aspirants to file nominations. And so we are getting closer to this whole electoral process, the main processes that lead to the elections proper. Osafoma for Auditor General back to court July 8th, also on the front page. So that will be it for the finder. By way of details, what do you want to start with, Roland?
For me, it's about our case count. And when I saw you know, sometimes the websites have notifications. So when you click the notification buttons, each post then brings you the notifications on your phone. So I have this thing I do with the Google, and it gave me the notification through my mail, and I watched it, and we had increased the mark from the last count. We had crossed the 20,000 barrier, and I kept wondering. So I decided to go back into, I have a number that I usually kind of dump posts and other forms of links to. So I went looking at the YouTube post or link that I sent on the Minister of Health, and it was exactly March 12th. There was a press conference. Joy News brought it live. And as usual, you know, we said breaking now or happening now. Yeah, it was happening now. And we announced the first 2 cases. The Minister of Health was at the center of that announcement. And looking at how far we've come, 20,000 crossing, then I said, well, it looks like we're where we said we wouldn't get to. And I don't know whether it's a blame game or perhaps maybe we just haven't been able to tighten our belt enough to be able to say, look, we needed to take some measures. We haven't been hard on ourselves enough. And so this is where we are. It's been a troubling night over the last 8 hours, I have to say. I don't know what you have to say about the current trend of cases that we have, as been reported by the Ghana Health Service, Joseph.
I think the first point is that it's indeed worrying. And like you said, from March 12th, there are 3 pillars that we started the fight with. We wanted to test, we wanted to trace, and we wanted to treat. Those were the 3 T's that the president spoke about. It's worthwhile to note that from March 12th to now, we got to a level where we had a lot of tests taking place. Currently, we don't have a lot of tests taking place due to the challenges and the lapse that the Director General of the Health Service has admitted to. We also know for a fact that contact tracing is not as aggressive as it ought to be or it was in the early days. Then the third point is that we have the absence of the strict restrictions that we started out with when we were in the hundreds of cases. And so it is a combination of these 3 factors that has led us to where we are currently. And it is worrying again, like the epidemiologists and the experts say, that they're thinking that we've lifted the restrictions emboldens people to believe that the virus is something that we are learning to live with and they shouldn't be worried about. And so that is how come each morning we do our best to drum home the need for people to stick to the restrictions and the safety protocols. Yet the numbers keep going up. And when we go out there, we still see hundreds. Yesterday, I drove through town and I saw people who were still not wearing a mask. When you get out of Accra, it's actually worse. Last 2 weeks, I was in the Kaswa area. You could see people walking around. I drove for meters and I couldn't see a single person in mask. And so those are the factors that have led us to where we are now. And that is how I understand the expert to predict that we'll hit 40,000. I mean, it's a safe prediction because as the day go by, you see people who are not adhering to the protocols. You also know that there is a scramble, like the health service will say, for the reagents and the other items we need in a lab. So it means that we're not going to test a lot of people. Test results are going to delay. So we're going to have infected people move around and infect many people who are not wearing the mask and are not distancing. And so it's just more or less taking matters into your own hands and ensuring that you are safe, Roland.
And for those of us who work in the media, the good thing that perhaps which is an advantage for us is we are closer to the personalities who tend to manage what we're calling the coronavirus crisis. And then also we tend to get closer to the institutions that are working within the various fears of coronavirus. And I have to say that Friday I went in for a test that is closely linked to where the testing is done for the samples. And the information that I gather indicates that even for you to have your sample tested, because we have shortages in reagents, etc., the people would have to, and I'm talking about the clinicians, the lab people, would have to take, either you have a symptom or a number of symptoms before it gets tested. And that is what we've got into. It means that it's got into a point where you need to show the symptoms before your sample is tested. I know this is very contestable. It will get to government people thinking that maybe I am churning out some negative news against the great effort that is being done by the national team. But it also speaks volumes about where we've got into by way of how we've been able to manage the crisis up to this point. Now, if I have to get on the list, my symptoms ticked, headache when I don't have headache, or maybe say I'm feverish when I don't have fever, before I have my samples tested, then it's even worrying. 2, what I'm saying is whom you know. I went to somebody whom I know, and even that one, it will take 6 to 12 days before I get my results. So I'm thinking, Adwoa Mansan, who doesn't know anybody and just goes to a normal facility and say, I'm going to test. It means that it's going to take how many days beyond the 12 days that I am likely going to get my result. I don't know what you think about it, Joseph Ackah-Blay.
Yeah, I think that is why I made a point that, I mean, it was clear from the onset, we knew what were the right things we ought to do. And that's how come we were told. There were very famous quotes that they said that the threat is at your doorstep. When you step out, you risk contracting it. We spoke about the fact that when you test many more people, you find you get a lot more cases. Then we said, okay, we want to take out those who have tested positive out of the society and isolate them to prevent them from infecting others. Now we have challenges. We can't do any of those things anymore. If you can't even test as many people to identify those who have tested positive, how do you take them out of the society? How do you contact trace them? They don't know their results. Their samples have been taken. It's taking 10 to 12 days for the results to come in. So they are moving around and infecting others. And so the solution, obviously, is in what we started out doing, which even at the time, we had the cases increasing. And for some reasons, we are now not being able to do those things, and it's now increasing at a faster rate. So the solutions are there. We have the example right here in the country. And that's how come it's interesting that the call that is being made to the Electoral Commission, that there are calls from the experts, a group of experts suggesting that they call off the registration exercise. I think I agree with the call that was made earlier by one expert that we spoke to, and his point was that he expects that government or the health service, for that matter, should have a certain threshold of cases that if the nation hits, they should start imposing some restrictions. We've seen it happen in some countries where they lifted the restrictions, and eventually when they realized that things were getting out of hand, they decided to bring back some of those restrictions. At least we know that Accra and Kumasi, the cases keep getting worse. And so those are 2 areas that we must be paying attention to. And we hope that the experts, at least, and our managers will be looking at those permutations to decide at which point to bring back some of those restrictions. Because clearly, we are not testing as much as we ought to. We are not tracing contacts because of the obvious results not coming in. And that renders few people that we are just treating who are already even becoming a stretch or a burden on our health facilities.
And Professor Binka, in this story that has been published by Daily Post, says in that interaction he had with the media house that the numbers are going to go up. And you know, he's an epidemiologist, but also a former vice chancellor of UHAS, the University of Health and Allied Sciences. And he says the virus doesn't have a leg. Okay, we all have gone through many in trying to slow it down. But once people come together, they will distribute the virus, and then we shall have more numbers. So it means that when you and I congregate together, we have more people congregating, that's where it stays. And we're even in the rainy season. We've talked to a number of virologists and people who are into health planning, etc., who are saying that, look, we expected that it will come to this point, but it is how we were able to restrict the movement. And I'm thinking, look, we can have the registration ongoing, but we need to lock down certain area. If it's Accra and Kumasi, then it means that we have to make sure people go and register, but it's only those who will go and register within a lockdown period. Very simple. It could be done. So that we have to reduce the numbers. The numbers that we're recording, 697, is frightening for a day. You know, before then, we were recording averaging 300 and 400 cases a day. And it's been happening over the last 5 to 6 weeks. And we need to do something about the rate at which the increases for the positives are being recorded. And if, according to what the experts are saying is true, if we have our health facilities overwhelmed, that is where the trouble is. Because even for the developed countries that have many hundreds, if not thousands of health professionals, they still can't cope. And we just have a few manning some few health facilities and they're overwhelmed. Then we're in trouble. Yeah.
Absolutely.
This story about Daniel Dumelovo, who has had, following the president's release, had his leave from 100, initially it was 123, right? Now it's 167. Ah, great. And then his acting has even, is it clearance of, on that Kroll and Associate issue?
So there are documents that, it's documents that is evidence of the work that has been done by Kroll and Associates. You know, the issue ended up at the Supreme Court, even though they are challenging it at the High Court. And concerns were raised by the Kroll and Associates and the Office of the Senior Minister that the work that they've done is of a sensitive nature and not such that they could put into the public domain. And so the point that the Auditor General was asked to do was to go and inspect those documents. And so they had a 10-day window, and 2 days to the expiration of that window, Mr. Dumelovo got a letter that he should proceed on leave. He raised issues about the fact that he doesn't think accumulated leave exists, and so he was going to proceed to take the leave for the year 2020. Then the presidency responds that, okay, if you want to take for 2020, that actually means you've made us an offer to add 44, which is for the year 2020. So we are adding the 44 to it. Then after that, just after that letter has been issued to him, we see another one that is written by the acting Auditor General, who now says he has gone to inspect those documents and he's satisfied with them. And so they should inform the court for the matter to return to trial at the High Court again. And so, I mean, obviously people are linking matters, and the lawyers heated legal debates among the fraternity, raising concerns about whether the president has the power to do that. And people are going by the famous logic position of extending arguments to show how absurd the view is by asking questions that doesn't mean that prior to December 6 or December 7, the president can direct the AC chairperson to take her accumulated leave, or can he do that for the Chief Justice? And the question again is that even if the Chief Justice proceeds on leave, will it be the president who now directs someone to take charge as acting Chief Justice? And the question is, can there be an acting Chief Justice when there is a substantive Chief Justice? In this case, you have an Auditor General who is on leave. And so if the president goes on leave, does the vice president become the acting president? We know, so those are all questions that are being asked. And there are issues that are being raised that, in simple terms, someone is not happy with the work that the Auditor General is doing, for which reason they just want his hands off investigations and the work that he's doing, at least between now and the election. We've not heard government formally respond to those allegations, except the letter from Nana Asante Bediato, who says, contrary to that view, the presidency actually believes the work of the Auditor General is important. But certainly there are serious governance issues that arise. And yesterday I read a piece from Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh of the CDB, who is making that point that he doesn't think that the framers of the Constitution intended the president to exercise such oversight responsibility over independent agencies that are supposed to act as a check on him. Obviously, it will throw the whole Constitution off gear if that were the intention. That is his view.
It's quite interesting. And if you look at what the president seemed to have stood on, to also extend the leave of the Auditor General, and also coming from the office of the president, there's great indication that they've always stood on the Article 187 of the Constitution. And it says this act applies to all workers and to all employers except the Ghana Armed Forces, the police, and the other sections of the security and intelligence agencies. Now, it says the Office of the Auditor is not part of the categories of workers excluded from the scope of application of the Labour Act, namely the armed forces, etc. And I believe that's where your point comes in, right? Whether one day we may see a future president who could also give a certain directive of such a sort to even a Chief Justice. Is there a possibility? Or to even the chairperson of the Electoral Commission or the SHRAJ, for example? It could happen, can't it? Can it? Or can't it?
Yes, it will. If we proceed with the interpretation that if the only exception is the intelligence agency and those other persons that you mentioned in that provision that you read, I mean, why wouldn't it apply to any of those independent agencies? And so that is why, I mean, the governance analysts are raising very serious concerns about this particular development. And it's very worrying. And it doesn't help the whole image about the fight against corruption that was a big issue prior to the 2016 election. In fact, this president rose into power on the back of coming in to change things. And that's how come the appointment of the special prosecutor, Martin Amidu, was greeted with a lot of cheers. Even people are even asking questions whether he's also been taking his leave and what work he's actually even been doing. I'm sure those are all matters that will come up at some point.
I think the special prosecutor could be told by the president to take his leave. It's possible.
The provision you read, if we go by that interpretation that the presidency is putting across, the exception, the special prosecutor is not exempted. And so that is the worrying angle to this whole discourse that people are pointing out. And I mean, we hope that at some point we are going to hear someone from government speak to those issues and answer those questions that are being asked as to whether they think that is good for our governance system, that we allow such independent agencies. And the point that the distinction that the governance analysts make between the independent agencies is the fact that for their removal, so if you pick the removal of the EC chairperson, it's not a case like a minister where the president can just have the person fired. It goes through a certain process. You need to set up a certain committee, send the letter to the petition to the Chief Justice. And even they say the presidency's removal is more of a duty. And so once they recommend the removal, they send it to him and he just carries it out. He doesn't have the opportunity to go through it and decide this or decide that. And so it's more of specialized actions that need to be taken. And I mean, we don't know whether this may end up in the courts. I doubt, but I mean, I think it would be good if perhaps the courts are offered the opportunity to say something on this issue.
I think at this point in time, beyond all the rhetorics and the writings that have been posted by Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh and the rest and the likes of them, perhaps we need to go to the Supreme Court for better interpretation of Article 187. What do you say? 187.
I agree, and beyond, we should be careful also not to turn this into a legal discussion alone, because there is a bit about governance angle to it, which may not necessarily be legal. So we are asking ourselves,
which is more like the moral and the spirit of the law itself, right?
Exactly. And so we don't want the discussion to be whether the president has the power to ask him to proceed on leave. We are asking that, does it help the confidence in our institutions that you have the executive instructing an agency or an agent that is supposed to check its expenditure of our funds to proceed on leave in such a manner? What does it mean for our governance structure as a whole? And that is something that is another angle that we need to critically explore.
Well, Joseph, great interaction so far, and your input has been immense. I know that Barcelona, they won, but it's still a 4-point gap with the top leaders in Spain. And Real Madrid, you're leading up there, but the 4-point difference is still the 4-point difference. But they still have 4 games to go.
Don't worry. I mean, the good thing from our game yesterday is that MSG is blending. Griezmann, fantastic performance yesterday. And so, I mean, Suarez and Messi, the 3 of them played very well. And so when they keep at that, we expect to win all the games, and hopefully Madrid will lose some games, then we get to win a title eventually.
Joseph, our lead court correspondent, and helping us there. I didn't know you're a good sports analyst or football analyst, or it's a Barcelona game analyst.
That's Barcelona and Kotoko.
Well, do enjoy your day, Joseph. Also, I want to say good morning to you, Nana Yao Jane Fikese. You're Managing Director for Road Safety Management Services Limited, a member of the Jospon Group of Companies. I wish you all the best, my good friend, and may God bless you for the rest of the day as well. And Evelyn Chebafo, I wish you all the best as well. You live in Bekwai, you teach in the senior high school there, you're back in school, also at the front line interacting with students. But in the meantime, we have to take a break because when we come back, Benedict Owusu is back with the latest sports headlines right here on the show. But please get interactive, as always, through our social media pages. We're taking a break. We'll be right back. As you can see, we have current case count up to date, but the new cases recorded from the last update, 697. But it brings the situational report as us having 8 critical cases, 6 of them on a ventilator or ventilators, and the severity being the category of some 22. As we move on, look at these cases explicitly. We also know that the active case count 5,093, and the recoveries have been pegged at some 14,870. In the meantime, we've only recorded 122, only because if you compare to other countries in the sub-region elsewhere in the world, these numbers are still low. But in total, we have up-to-date case count 20,085 cases of coronavirus. And Greater Accra is always leading the charge, and the Western North with 154, and then other regions subsequently among the 16 regions of our republic still recording some of the lower numbers. Upper West has 55. Before then you would have 112 for Oti region, and Savannah, Bono, Ahafo, and Northeast region, which has the least number of cases, 8. But let's get on to the lines and speak to some of the experts as they give us a breakdown of the analysis of the current case count and what it means to the population in general. We're speaking to the population issues because there have been concerns about our inability to be able to maintain the needed protocols across board. And that is why population experts and those also who look into the dynamics of public health in relation to growth of the population and the dynamic itself have become very important. Let's speak to Dr. Eugene Datteh, who is a population and health expert with the University of Cape Coast, one of the foremost universities we have in Ghana that has a whole department that looks at some of these dynamics. And good morning to you, Dr. Datteh. If you look at our case count currently, what will be your own observations within the period, especially over the last 4, 5, and 6 weeks?
Thanks very much. I think there's been some increases over the last 2 weeks, and the question is, where are these increases coming from? I think it will be very informative if we get data that will show exactly who these new cases are and where they are from. For me, it will be judgmental to say that the cases are out because of the registration.
Well, we seem to be having some difficulties with the line to Dr. Eugene Datteh, who is a population and health expert with the University of Cape Coast. As we look at the broader dynamics, we also do know that we have to get into some of the intricacies of why the populations per meter square and how that could have some implications on whether we adhere to the protocols and its effects on public health. And Dr. Eugene Datteh will help us do that. But again, we'll have to go over our case count, and it's where we again have to apprise you of what the numbers are. We're in the region of having crossed up-to-date case counts of some 20,000, but the active ones are 5,093. We have 14,870 recoveries and discharges so far, with fatalities pegged at 122. As far as the new cases are, as have been reported over the last updates, we have 697. Well, it's where we have to go back to the phone line. Dr. Eugene Datte is on the line, and you were saying, please continue from where we left off.
Well, like I was saying, yes, there have been some increases, but the question we need to ask ourselves is that we need to understand who these new cases are. Where are they coming from? Because for me, it will be a bit judgmental for us to conclude that the new cases are the result of the voter registration exercise. Before the exercise, the cases were going up. Now, with these new cases, I think we need further particulars. We need data that would support the assertion that the cases are rising because of the voter registration exercise. I've gone out myself. I did my registration yesterday. Where I did my registration, the protocols were observed. So the question is, the places where the protocols have not been observed or are not being observed, what is the reason? And I think we need to put in place the systems to ensure that the protocols are observed. The process has started. I'm not sure the process is going to be curtailed. What we need to do as a people is to take the responsibility for our lives and ensure that once, as we step out there to engage in this process, we do what is expected of us. And I believe that once we do that, all should be fine with us.
There's an intrinsic link to population spacing and then the infection and spread. What can you say about that, sir?
Well, the general knowledge is that once there's crowd and once there's a likelihood of an increase in the spread. But we should also appreciate the fact that people are out there doing this exercise, and on the average, when I went out there, the average time was about 30 minutes maximum. All the people I met in there had masked on. The EC officials insisted on the protocols being observed. When there are large crowds, there will be a few people who would want to break the protocols, but that's where there are the presence of security officials at these centers. The citizenry should work closely with the EC officers and the police to ensure that there's law and order. And I believe that with the protocols that the EC has put in place, if we observe the protocols, if we stay responsible, the process will go on smoothly without any real issues. Like I said earlier, the numbers definitely are going to go up because there are other places that people go to. The most important thing is that there are a set of protocols, there are a set of guidelines, and each and every one of us must ensure that we go by these protocols and set of guidelines.
There's a publication that was put together by the Public Reference Bureau of the United States of America, and it drew great links with the population density of communities and the likely spread of the virus quickly around the world. We have been a bit late in getting the surge in the virus. Would you say that perhaps now that we are having the virus, our population and the dynamics of spacing has got a certain link to it?
Well, definitely. It's a main fact that the virus spreads faster in the places where the density is high. And if you go around our country, most of the places have high density. Look, Accra has a very high density. There are areas in Accra where social distance is just not possible because of the way people live and the way people interact. But that is where we need to emphasize the need to observe these protocols. See, what we're asking people to do requires time for them to do. People would have to adapt to new behavior. People have to adjust to the new normal. And it is not an event, it's a process. So we need to ensure that we work on people's mindset and remove them from a state of mind, a state of behavior where they could do things anyhow to a point where they need to be restricted in the way they do things. It's not easy to change people's behavior. It is a very difficult exercise, and we need to go through constituents. I think we need to put out more tailor-made messages which would let people appreciate what they are. If you look at the personalities who are getting affected, a lot of people think that COVID is nowhere close to them. I believe that the risk perception is truly low, and one of the things we need to do is to put out programs and messages which would, in a way, increase the risk perception. If you know that you can get it, I think you take precautions. If you let people know that they should take themselves as the only people who do not have it, and that every other person has, I believe that people will be more careful when they are stepping out of their homes, because whether like them or not, COVID is with us, COVID is real, and we need to take steps to ensure that we protect ourselves from COVID.
Look, as we talk about the population dynamics, it's, I'm told, intrinsically linked to public health. How do we link that?
You see, once we interact, an infected case will not live in isolation. You interact. As you move from your homes to the workplace, as you move from the hospital to the electoral area, you never know who you're going to meet and where the person has gone to. And when it comes to these health-related issues, responsibility is one of the key things that we need to do. Accepting the fact that you are at risk is one of the ways by which you can avoid getting the until we get to a point where all of us would appreciate the fact that we are all at risk, I believe that we're not going to make any headway. But once we accept that we are at risk, then we take a right measure. But I think that sometimes the case count is up. Is it close to 20,000? But I think the focus for me should be on the active cases. We should also look at the number of people who have recovered from their infection. I don't think we are doing badly as a country. But what we need to do is to sustain the positives. And once we do that, we use these recoveries as a way to let people know that there's a way. Also, we need to let people who have recovered probably step out there and help with education. Can these people come out to share their experiences with people? For me, I think that once we know people, we can see faces and identify the faces with real people. I believe that people will change their way. A lot of people think that it's so far from them. But if you know somebody who's had it and the person comes to tell you his or her experience, I believe that we can work around it and try to change people's attitudes and behavior towards that.
We also do have on the line, alongside Dr. Eugene Datteh, somebody who is a regular contributor to the show, Professor Kwame Nasego, a virologist with the University of Ghana Medical School as well. He's also a Reverend Minister, so it helps for us to mix the medical practice or the clinical aspect with the godly aspect. But Professor Sego, from where Dr. Datteh left off, he seems to say that we seem to be doing well comparatively with other countries. So that means that we shouldn't be creating some level of fear and panic. Should that still be the refrain? Professor Sego?
Can you hear me?
Professor Sego, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, did you hear my question?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you now.
Great. So I'm speaking to Dr. Eugene Datteh. So all of us are going to have this conversation. From where he left off, his last submission, he seemed to ultimately suggest that we are doing better than other countries. Is it that then we shouldn't be spreading fear and calm? We shouldn't be alarmed from your point of view as a clinician?
Well, I'm not a clinician, actually. I'm a virologist, basically. But I heard the last part of his contribution. I wasn't in through the beginning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please go ahead, sir.
So I heard his point that we may not be doing badly. I'll be the first to admit that there are challenges. And it's a global thing. Even the advanced economies are having challenges. But we should do the best we can within the means that we have. Okay, so I heard him also significantly talk about the fact that when we are thinking of the number of cases, we should also think of the number of recovered cases. Of course, there are new guidelines for recovery that I'm not too clear about, and not in the terms of the testing and whether there will be a residual spread, even with releasing people that way. But that said, I think that the emphasis should be on us ensuring that the preventive measures that we have put in place are really working. I just, you mentioned that I was a Reverend Minister. I was from church yesterday, and I passed through a particular place. I wouldn't mention names. There was a gathering going on, and I can put my head on the line that I didn't see a single person in mask. There was no social distancing. This was a community of people who were sitting inside a compound and on the roadside, having, I don't know whether it was a funeral, whatever it was, but not a single person was in mask. So that really is a problem, that now the scientists are saying that this thing could be airborne. I know that in Ghana, I don't have all the data, but I know that in Ghana, they seem to be having a lot of indoor transmission, really strongly suggesting probably an airborne. We need to use the mask, and we need to watch the way we aggregate for meetings. I think it is critical. I think that is the critical, most important thing that we need to do now, and we need to encourage people to do.
Okay, so you, the virologists, and those at the medical field, you are saying that the fault is ours, the population.
We're not saying the fault is ours. I said that I was the first to admit that there are challenges. For example, hospitals are complaining about PPEs, frontline workers. I consider frontline workers as anybody who comes into contact with any patient, not the person who deals with COVID-19 patients, because you may be dealing with asymptomatic patients, people who are coming to the hospital who are coming not because of COVID, but for other reasons. So, yes, there are challenges. I'm not saying that there are no challenges. There are challenges. I'm just trying to say that if you look at the big picture, and we should look at the big picture, big global picture, it is not only Ghana which has challenges. Most countries have real big challenges. If you look at the testing, even the complaints we are making about testing, I can send you a summary of testing algorithms for countries even within the West African region. You realize that Ghana is doing fairly well in terms of testing per million of population, even though we say we are scaling down testing. So my point is that we are not doing bad. I'm not saying that there are no problems. There are problems, and there may be major problems. But let's build up on where it is, and let's make sure that the population also adheres to. I'm becoming very pessimistic about population adhering to. I'm sorry for saying this, but because people argue. I've had an opportunity, situation where somebody actually argued with somebody just by me in a shop. We were using an elevator, and he wasn't wearing a mask. So I asked him, why aren't you in a mask? And started giving excuses. And an attendant called him, and the attendant from the shop told him that people are dying. He actually burst out, was angry that the man should show him the number of people who are dead. He hasn't seen a dead person. This is in Africa. I'm not saying that telling you a story. I'm telling you something that happened in my presence. So people don't believe, and that's a fact. People think that they are excluded because they haven't seen any dead person. So if we really want to curb the spread, we cannot rely on only government to curb the spread. We all have to make sure we play our part. And I'm not sure how this will work within certain communities, actually. Unfortunately, I have to say this.
Okay. Dr. Datte, do I get the sense that the experts like you, Professor Sego, you have the solutions, but it is us who just don't get the message? Dr. Datte? Dr. Datte?
Yes, hello.
Yeah, okay. Do I get this? Yeah, can you also hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Do I get the sense that it is you the experts, you those who have the know-how, who get the message, who seem to have the right solutions, but us in the population, it is us who just don't get it, don't know what to do.
I think that I wouldn't want to shift the blame. What I think we need to do is to have a communication plan to deal with COVID-19. I want to see the communication plan, but I don't think that we're really doing we're targeting properly. There are different target groups, different segments in our country. That's why for me I asked if we could get some data to know who and who is getting infected and who is observing the protocol and who is not. Because we need to understand why somebody doesn't want to observe the protocol. So let us also appreciate the fact that when these protocols are new to us, they are like innovation. And with every innovation, you expect only a few people, just less than 12%, to begin the process. But as the process goes on, as the campaign gets intensive, and as the campaign gets more targeted at specific populations, you will get there. Unfortunately, behavior change is a slow process. Behavior change is not a linear process. There are people who decide to wear their mask today, people who decide to wash their hands, and they will go back to a situation where they will not wash their hands because as they go to a place and they do not get the impact after whatever. You need to enforce. To get the process started, you need to enforce the rules. If somebody who is wearing a mask, that person should not go everywhere close to, say, the registration center. If you are in an office and somebody comes in without a mask, send the person away. If you are a taxi driver and somebody is going to blow the taxi without a mask, send the person away. You need to help with the process. You cannot leave all this to only government and to the people in the health ministry. All of us as a people must have this responsibility. Let us all be change agents. Let us all insist on the right thing being done. And with that, I believe we can make progress. Let us also appreciate that population change or behavior change is not an event. It is a process. It is a very, very difficult process to go through. And we must put our shoulders to the wheel and ensure that we all achieve it. So it's communication, proper segmentation, and also enforcement of the protocols that have been put out there by government and by the health officials.
Professor Sego, it looks like we've not been leading by example then, have we? Because if you look at the pictures and what the stories have been, even the so-called big men have been flouting what you think should be the order of the day by the population.
Yes. So that's why I said that I'm not absolving anyone. There are problems, but we shouldn't rely on only government to solve the problem. Yes, leadership by example is important, and I was going to bring up this issue. I thought that Dr. Date approached on it a little. Where are our community leaders at this time? Do our community leaders believe that this is real? I see myself as a community leader, and at church yesterday on Sunday, after every service, I spend a minute or two telling them something. So yesterday, for example, I tell them, don't hold the face of the mask because it may be contaminated. But if in case you do handle it, use the sanitizer immediately. That is my responsibility as a leader, as a community leader in the church. So I'm ensuring that we are following rigidly the rules and regulations that we have, social distancing, washing of hands, and we've done that successfully by God's grace for about 3 Sundays. My point is, this is a time when we should use the various communities to, first and foremost, we should make the community leaders believe that this is true and that this exists. Let me give an example. Why can't we, for example, and I don't know if this is done, I don't know if this has been done, so I'm speaking as somebody who doesn't know exactly what has been done on the ground. These are just suggestions that are coming. So just please let me make this disclaimer so that it's not said that I said it is not being done. I'm not sure. So what about if having even a video conferencing or a Zoom conferencing with all chiefs, the National House of Chiefs and with the number of chiefs, them being held so that there could be some communication with them, because when they speak, people listen. Where I passed yesterday, I am sure they are communicating. If we make the community's leaders believe, when they go to these meetings, they will insist that people should put it on. And when they speak, people will listen. So this is the time, I know this has come up months ago, this is the time for us to focus on the community leaders. Just like when politicians want vote, they go to the community leaders. I mean, they go and talk to them before they enter the community as a way of showing respect. Why? We should get back to the community leaders and make them aware. I don't know if all of them believe, but if they do, to try to give them enough proof that this is real. So in your own small way, how can you help the community to be able to do this? So my point I'm just trying to make is that I'm not shifting things. It is a general problem. I see myself as part of the solution. And the little way that I can, I will do the best I can. But if everybody tries to do the little they can, we will reach somewhere. I mean, if you see some people speaking and friends on the road, you see friends speaking, and then they don't drop their mask. When they've met friends, that is when they've actually dropped their mask. And they're chatting, happily chatting with each other. And we've left the crowd, so now the mask is down. Do you know where your friend has been to? Do you know where your relative has gone to? They are real issues. And I think that we should look at the big picture. And the point I'm trying to make is that, of course, as much as I am having challenges with even the I'm not sure. Maybe that's how we have to go. Let's identify community leaders, people who speak, and people listen. Let them lead by example and try to get to the community through various means, safe means, to make sure that the lesson is sent out.
Well, very well. Well, thank you very much. Dr. Eugene Datteh is a population and health expert with the University of Cape Coast. Dr. Datteh, good morning to you, and thank you for this great contribution. And we're hoping that all of you also can send a message out there that those around you in the communities that you serve, your students, could also get all these updates on Joy News TV, which is our live YouTube channel, and also for Facebook, going with the same name and get all these updates. And Professor Kwame Nasego is also a Reverend Minister, virologist with the University of Ghana Medical School and the Center, working closely with a number of experts to make sure that Odd Front, we're all in a position to combat this. And right here on the AM show, this is what we do, creating the content so that all of us can have some great conversation, because closely related to this is the issue of the ongoing voter registration exercise. Beyond all the arrests and all the things that are going on are the concerns about public health, its maintenance, and then going according to the protocols that have been enshrined when it comes to COVID-19 or coronavirus. We have men on the ground. We've been deploying them since Tuesday when this exercise started. So we're just in day 6, and we are now going to give you the latest update. We'll speak to also the Director of Training for the Electoral Commission, Mr. Michael Boadu, and get the latest update. But right now, let's go to the Bono East region, speak to Anas Sabit. He's been a man on the ground since day 1, monitoring events, and right now he's is at one of those centers where the registration is ongoing. Anas, what can you tell us? Where exactly are you?
Roland, currently in Techiman, in the Techiman South constituency, and you know, this is the phase 2 of the exercise ongoing. I'm at the Hausa Line Electoral area, and where I am is the ARMS polling station A and B, and of course registration started not exactly at 7 a.m. but some few minutes after 7. That's around 7:15. Thereabout. That's when the whole exercise started. As I speak to you, either of the 2 polling or registration centers have registered over 10 persons, with all protocols being observed here. I see the Veronica Buckets, I see health officials from the Ghana Health Service also taking care of their temperatures, as we saw during the phase 1 of the exercise. Apart from that, there were a bit of issues with this social distancing, but after the EC officials spoke with the people and then urged them to abide by the protocols, it seems there's some sort of understanding here, and all of them are standing at least some few meters distant from each other. So for now, from where I'm standing, I'm a bit impressed with the exercise, as everything is on course and then all the protocols are strictly being adhered to.
There is an important aspect of how we as a people have been able to take in some of the suggestions so far. It looks like it seems to be going well in many of the centers that you have covered since Tuesday. Can I make that conclusion, Anas?
Yes, in a way I would say yes, especially in the Bono East region. From all the areas I have visited, I see some sort of cooperation between the registrants and then the officials of the various institutions have been covering. In fact, if you could see from this particular station, there are chairs placed, and of course, people are sitting. Without any misunderstanding so far, and all of them are on their nose masks, with the EC officials instructing the people to wash their hands the moment they get to the polling or registration centers before they're even allowed access to either of the chairs that are being placed here. Apart from that, the EC officials are also placed just before you get to the registration point, so they take your temperature and then they prevent you from getting there in case you have a higher temperature. So far here in the Bono East region, I am yet to come across, from the areas I have visited, I'm yet to come across any unfortunate incidents with regards to the issue of the protocols, and I'm a bit impressed, quite impressed with the situation so far as the phase 2 is concerned.
The centers that you visited so far, usually how many people do they expect to register based on the targets for the day?
You know, from the previous places I've visited, this is the phase 2, like I said earlier. And so for the phase 2, this is the first day 1 of the phase 2. When we monitored the phase 1, where the 6 days elapsed, most of the areas are registering between 120, 150, thereabout. The least amongst them in some of the rural areas are visited, registering about 80 a day. But in this particular area, because this is the first day, it's only if they are able to refer to the previous polling register they are having, electoral polling they are having. That will be when they'll be able to tell you the number of people they are expecting to register. But this particular electoral, I'm told, or this particular polling station, I'm told previously, has about 1,000 voters. So if that is anything to go by, and they are expecting at least to do between 150 and then 200 registrations a day to be able to catch up with the 6 days the EC is having for this particular polling station or the electoral area.
Well, we'll see how it goes with you. Just stay with us. Also, we have other correspondents on the line. We'll try as much as possible to get to speak to them. We have the Director of Elections for the MPP, Evans Nimako, joining us. Good morning to you, Mr. Nimako. Good morning, Mr. Nimako. Oh, we'll get to you.
Morning.
Yeah, definitely with a connection when it comes to Zoom. What's your own assessment of the 6-day period since the exercise has started? We're in the second phase, we're told.
Yes, thank you and good morning to your viewers. I think for us as New Patriotic Party, the exercise has been very good. It's been encouraging. We didn't expect that. Coming from the background of where the NDC had preached that people should not patronize, we thought that we were not going to get the numbers. But across the country, everywhere that the registration took off, we realized that the first 6 days it's been very encouraging. The numbers are huge. What really is the challenge is the strict observance of the COVID-19 protocols. And that will urge the security to help us step up. It is important that all stakeholders come on board, and the work of you, the media, is of high essence. And so we continue to urge Ghanaians that those who are due to be registered should observe it so that they are not infested with any diseases. We expect that this process will end and eligible people will have their names on the electoral roll so that they can help in the decision making as to who becomes the president and who becomes their members of parliament.
There's a considerable aspect of the complementary role that the parties needs to play. This, again, has also been emphasized by the Electoral Commission. How well has the governing New Patriotic Party also done its bit?
Yes, all over, across the registration centers, we've had our agents and our party members are supporting. We've told them of the importance to observe these COVID-19 protocols. It is also by law, looking at the EI 64. So it is important that we all collaborate to ensure that we protect our lives and stay safe. So we've told our agents, we've told our party membership. Already, whilst we're going through our constituency primaries in constituencies where we have sitting members of parliament, the party provided for all our delegates face masks. And we are still supplying face masks to our people in all these areas. I think what is challenging now is that there are a lot of people who want to be registered, and so they get flooded at the registration centers. The arrangement that has been put in place by the Electoral Commission is said that each registration center or polling station will have its fair share of the registration day. So we will still urge our members that if it is not yet at your electoral area or polling area, just stay at home and keep watching the movement plan of the Electoral Commission. When it gets to your area, you can then move to the registration center to have your name written. I, for one, I normally register in my hometown, Bonso, because my date is not yet due. I've not made any attempt to go to Bonso to register. So we are urging our members and every Ghanaian who is 18 years and above of sound mind, as stated in the Constitution and the CI, that you exercise a bit of restraint and wait for the date to reach your area, then you can then go ahead. The arrangement, I think, that has been put in place, looking at 33,367, each and every one will be served. And we insist that the EC continue to educate the Ghanaian, the EC, NCC, and in fact, political parties, we MPP, we are doing our best. The media must also come in and help. But in all this, when we are at the registration center, we will urge all to collaborate with the security agencies to ensure that we observe the COVID-19 spacing. Yes, some people may be in the face masks. The other issue is that are they able to space themselves in the registration center? I think that's where the challenge is, that we must ensure that we all come on the same page to observe it.
Let me just ask a last question before we get onto the electoral ground at a research school right here in Accra. I've heard several reports of either your opponent or sometimes individuals who allegedly have a pack of the Form 1A of the Electoral Commission. I do know that the Electoral Commission had communicated, if not a number of you, the political parties, that one can print the Form 1A, fill it, and then send it to the electoral registration area. It makes it easy for the process to be hastened or to be expedited. What do you say about people having a number of the forms, so to speak?
Yes, I mean, it is for the individual. This is coming from the Electoral Commission. So they must come clear and let Ghanaians know that as part of the registration process, individuals can go onto their website, print out the Form 1A, fill it up, and go to the registration centers to help the registration officials to go through the processes. So that has been said, but it has to be area code and area code for people to appreciate it. I don't think this is the same as the gentleman in Sanaregu who willingly and clandestinely stole the registration materials of the Electoral Commission. It is different when you have gone onto the net and printed out the Form 1A, and when you have sat with the Electoral Commission at the registration center and managed to steal the registration material. That cannot be tolerated. So yes, if the EC says that on the website you can print out from 1A, that is in order. They must let the world know. It cannot be just one announcement and that is the end of it. It has to be very harsh for people to appreciate it. There are also other incidents. I mean, if you talk of Doma West in Bono region, where some thugs were apprehended by the police. We talk of K2 South. And all these, my brother, what is important is that, yes, maybe it is coming from the New Patriotic Party, and so there might be some people who may decide not to accept it. What is the police saying? What is the media saying? And I'm happy that you have your men on the field across, and they can report back to you and your viewers and listeners.
Okay. Evans Nimako is Director of Elections, the New Patriotic Party, helping us do the discussion. But we have to get onto the ground again. Earlier, we were speaking to Anas Sabit, giving us the scenario or the atmosphere in one of those registration centers in Techiman. But let's go on the ground. Maxwell Agbagba is having some observations at one of the centers around Reach. And so I also know it's the ground where he'll be speaking to the Director of Training for the Electoral Commission. Maxwell, good morning to you. Can you hear me? What can you report for us this morning? What so far are your observations?
Well, Roland, we're here at the Reach Church Registration Center. What I can say confidently is that here at this registration center, we've seen some semblance of social distancing and the adherence to the COVID-19 health protocol. Quite different from what we saw sometime last week when we visited the Ododo-Diodio and the Blekuma South constituency. This is the second phase of the registration exercise, and it has started smoothly here at the Ridge Registration Center. As you can see, the people behind me are getting ready to join the queue here to the next stage of the registration process. So when they arrive here at the Ridge Church Registration Center, they first of all wash their hands over there. There's a Veronica bucket. A gentleman right now is washing his hand. From there, he moves to the plastic chairs that are carefully, spaced out here. They sit down, and then when it is their time, they move to the main registration center where their temperature is checked before they go through the registration process. So without any delay, let me take you in there. Let's see how it happens. And remember also that we have with us the Director of Training for the Electoral Commission, Mr. Michael Boydu. He's here. He'll be interacting with us. But this is the lady who is taking the temperature of the applicants who are coming here. We'll later take you through what is happening here. But let's speak to Mr. Michael Boydu, who is the Director of Training for the Electoral Commission. Let's find out from him what he makes of the first phase of the registration exercise. On a scale of 0 to 10, what would be his rating? Mr. Boydu, welcome to join us.
Thank you very much, brother.
We finished with the first phase of the registration exercise. I want to find out from you, what is your rating of the first phase?
Thank you very much. I must say we have done very well. The turnout has been very impressive. And maybe I would say 85 to 90%.
Okay, yeah. 85 to
90%.
Wow. Wow, okay. That's interesting because what we've seen here, quite commendable. Persons here are adhering to the social distancing protocol. But we have been to other places like the Bekruma South constituency, the Ododo-Diodio constituency, and we've seen what is happening there. Will that also add up to your 85 or 95%?
Yes, in fact, but for the COVID protocols which has not been observed by some in certain localities, we would have chalked about 100%. But that is taken away the 10%. And it's because people are just not willing to obey simple instruction of keep your distance. That's all we're asking them to do. Keep your distance at the center. When you're done, you go home. but it's difficult for some to do. Other communities, it's okay. So we continue to educate them and let them see the reason we ask them to do so. It is for our own good. No, bear in mind what we are, the condition we find ourselves in now. So, yes, but for some places where this social distancing has not been observed, largely, the work itself, the technical aspect of the work has been excellent. It's this protocol aspect from regard to social COVID-19, where we have some challenges. And we are still continue to educate our people so they can know how to behave very well in these times.
Okay, Mr. Bodu, I'll come to the technical aspect, as you rightly mentioned, but there are some people who still think that the Electoral Commission is risking the lives of all Ghanaians by still going about this registration exercise in this period of a pandemic. What do you make of these assertions?
Let me say this. The constitution of the country does not make room for extension of the president's stay in power. And so what it means is that by 7th December, we have to conduct elections. Now, if we all agree to this, then preparations towards the election is equally important. Because election is not an event, it's a process. And so registration is part of the process to the election. And so if you all agree that we have to, and we cannot do without the election, because that will create serious constitutional problem, and so we all agree we must be elections, then there's a need for registration. And all that we need to do is that life must go on in the midst of this COVID. So how do we ensure that we are safe and go about our normal duties in this environment? That is why we are saying that we are putting in place protocols that people are expected to observe.
But these protocols are being breached in some of the registration centers. Right. And even in some instances, police officers who are supposed to maintain law and order and ensure the adherence to this protocol have thrown up their hands in despair.
Well, I wouldn't describe their throwing hands in despair because they still give us an assurance that they are in the position to do what they are supposed to do. Okay. Security, we are working with them. It's a team. The security and the Ministry of Health. That's a team we are working with this. It's a team for this registration. So where there are lapses, we draw their attention and they take care of those things. And so we expect from now, knowing what happened in the first phase, the security will step up their game and make sure that people are compelled to do the right thing. Okay. And I'm sure we will see something different in the subsequent phases. Okay. Good. Okay.
But how many people successfully registered in the first phase of the exercise?
Good. We're looking at about 2.2 million.
Wow. Yeah. 2.2 million after the end of the fifth day, or
after the end of the fifth day, it's about 1.8. But considering the fact that every day we get between 350,000 to 400,000, if you add that, because we are yet to add that of the 6th day, we're likely to get 2.2 million for the first phase. And may I even add that out of these 2.2 million, those who registered using the NIA are about 64%. Wow. Yes. And those who registered using the guarantees, about 33. Just about 3% use passports. So that's the breakdown. So it means that people really have access to their Ghana card, largely, and that's what we are using. And it's a good development compared to the DLE, the registration, the supplementary registration that we did, where over 90% registered with guarantors form. Now the pattern is changing. So we're over 60% now using NIA card. And so we know with time, when more people will get access to the card, the guarantor situation will even phase out naturally. And everybody will register with a card in future exercises.
Wow. Yeah. So for the first phase, about 2 million people have registered. Is this significant enough? Are you impressed with these figures?
Yes, I am impressed because the subsequent phases, where more police stations will be opened and more machines will be sent there, we are likely to record more numbers. And so our targets of 50 to 70 million will all by means be achieved.
Wow, interesting. Interesting. Now, there's talk about being able to complete this exercise within 10 minutes. The EC drummed home this point. We heard it over and over again. Is that the reality on the ground?
It is.
10 minutes, we are done?
If you start from table 1, through up to the third table, you spend within 10-15 minutes, not more than that. If you add the time you spend in the queue, then it will not be a reasonable thing to do. Because if I'm to spend 10-15 minutes on each person, and you are the number 20th person, so imagine the 19 people that are in front of you. Each of them will spend 10 minutes on. You get your 10 in about 3 hours. Okay. So if you use as the basis to determine how long you stay here, then that will not be fair. The process itself, when you start from table 1, you will not spend that more than 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and you are done. Okay. Yes. So that is why we are using the queue management control system. What it means is that when we come to a center and want to start to work, and we see the numbers there, we generate cards for them. The cards have their numbers and dates. Okay. We generate it for them. So if our capacity for a day, it is say maybe we can handle 150, 120 people a day, we issue the cards for them. And those who fall beyond the 150, we ask them to go and count the following day. We won't even give them some cards from 150 to 200. Go, because there's no way we can get you today. We cannot take care of you today. So we go and count the following day so that we concentrate on the 120, 150 for that day. Even with the 120, 150, before noon, we might not be able to get to about 90. So we ask those of you bearing 100 and above, you can as well go and come after 1 or 2. By which time we would have cleared the first 100 something, and then we take care of you. If that misunderstanding is there, we will not come stay here and say we are staying here in the morning to evening before you get to our 10. We have given you a number. When you come at the time given to you, you'll be taken care of. Okay. And so with this arrangement, I'm sure if you have to keep to it, the queues will be reduced considerably in the centers, and there will be order. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
We'll let you take us through the process shortly, but an argument that was made for a new voters register was the inclusion of the facial recognition, feature. How is that going?
It is going. In fact, that takes place on the second table. Okay. So if if we should go through the process, let's start from table 1. Okay. I'll run it through, and when you get there, you see what we are talking about.
Sure. So let's start from table 1. What happens here at table 1?
Table 1, this is where the registration officers are. They record your biographic data. You can see there are 2 of them, okay, and there are 2 applicants in front of each. So that is where we take your name, your parents' name, your house number, hometown details, and all that. And that's what is going on here. So we advise that before you even come to the center, get this information down. You can write it on a piece of paper if you cannot recollect so fast. Okay. Right? Or let somebody write it for you if you cannot write. Especially with your house number and your hometown and the house number of your hometown. And then your parents' name, that is straightforward. But where we have challenges is where it's the house number. People don't remember their house numbers. So you can write it down somewhere. And in your hometown, the house number of your hometown, let's write it somewhere. And you come with it. So when you come with all this information already handy, it facilitates the process. Because you will not even ask a lot of questions. Once you hand over those things to the officer, we just go through. If there are any clarifications, you ask. And you don't spend much time here if you all prepare this way. Okay. So from here, you are giving your card.
Okay, so I'm likely to spend how many minutes at the first table?
Let me find out from the arrow. Sorry, just interrupt you briefly. Mr. Arrow, how long do you spend on each person filling the form?
We normally take around 3 to 4 minutes, depending on how readily available.
Okay, so within 3 to 4 minutes. That's okay.
Sure. Okay, so let's move on to the next table. So you tell us what happens here on this table.
That's the entry clerk table. Okay. And that's where you see the BVR, the device for registration. So the information that was captured on the form 1A, on table 1, is here. You see the same form is lying on that table. And then the data entry officer is keying in the information as it appears on the form 1A onto the computer.
Okay.
When it is done, there will be a printout on a different form called form 1C. That's how it looks like.
Okay.
So the printout will be on this one. And you will see a column for ID beneath, down there.
Okay.
And so the ID details will be here too. And that is where the third officer, the officer on the third table, will detach and laminate and give to the applicant as his or her identity card.
Okay.
Good. And that's where, when the information is taken, it's keyed on the laptop, then your fingerprint is captured using the scanner.
Okay.
Good. After which your photographs will be taken using the camera. That is where the facial recognition takes place.
Okay.
Good. Once we capture you with this camera, your data will be stored on the BVD.
Okay.
The BVD is not here. That's what we're going to use for the election. Good. It will be stored on there. So when during election, when you come and you place your finger on the BVD and it fails to recognize you, then there's a camera on the BVD. The new one that we are procuring, there's a camera. We take your picture instantly there, and it compares with the picture that we are taking now.
Okay.
It's already on the system. They will match. They will compare. So when there is a match, then it proves that you are the person. Then your identity is guaranteed, and you'll be allowed to vote.
Okay.
Yes, so the facial recognition is here. It's starting from this process. We capture the information here. And eventually, it will end during election when this information captured will be placed on the BVD.
Okay.
Because that's where the verification actually will take place during the registration, the elections.
Okay.
Yes. So from here, we'll move to the last table.
Okay.
This is the laminated table.
Okay.
And that is where, you see, let me see this. The form that I showed you, Edda, the form I showed you.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Good. Let me compare this. Cameraman, you see the difference between this and that? You see, this has been processed. The down part has been detached. So the ID portion and the split has been given to the applicant and it's gone. So this is the final product, what will be left for office use.
Okay.
Good. The down is for the applicant. It has been detached and it's gone. We're going to do the same for her.
Okay.
So when you come, you just detach this place and also detach the laminate, the ID portion, and laminate only the ID portion. This is a receipt portion. So we give the laminated ID card and the receipt portion, which is laminated, to the applicant, and you are gone.
Okay.
Over here, when you are done with you, then you dip your finger in the indelible ink to indicate that we have processed you, so that when you go somewhere else to try to register, once you have the ink there, you will be questioned.
Okay.
Good, because you should not come to register when you have the ink there. We know you have done it already.
Okay.
That is the process for you.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael Buda. I don't know if our lady here would want to speak to us. Hello, what's your name?
I'm Ikia Dake.
Okay. Ikia, tell me, how did the process go for you? And how many minutes did you spend to do this?
Okay, it was smooth. I think I spent about 8 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So I've spent 8 minutes, so I'm still here, so I'm not done yet.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's going to be like 10 minutes?
10 minutes, I should say.
Are you impressed? The EC is saying that 85, 95%. What rate and how do you rate the EC?
Oh, I'm impressed from where I am registering from, but not from what I see on TV.
So from where you're registering from, on a scale of 0 to 10?
90.
Wow, 90%. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure you're happy about this assessment. Hopefully, when we go to some other parts of the country also, we'll get an assessment and we'll definitely, pass it on to you. Yeah. Okay, so finally, before we go, what message do you have for people who are moving to other areas to register? Perhaps they do not know that this registration is in phases and are moving to other areas to go and register. What do you have to tell them?
In the first place, before you make up your mind to go and register, look out for the information as to when it will be your turn. Find out when we will get to your place. You don't just get up to in the center you see available. No. So if you can access the internet, go to our website, you will find it. Go to our nearest district office of the commission. You will provide you that information. We also have it on the various social media. Yes. But make sure you get the information as to when your center will be opened. Okay. And go exhaustively to your center. Because if you don't do that, you stand the risk of being challenged. Because you have to register where you live. And so if you go somewhere else, you can be challenged. And you might not be able to register. And we have the resources in terms of the equipment and the materials and the men to cover all the 33,000 polling stations in the country. Okay. So we'll get your 10. Do not entertain the fear that we run out of materials. It will not happen. Okay. Yes. So let's move to centers assigned for us and register where you're supposed to register, and we'll be taken care of. Okay. Yes. Okay. Finally, before we go, a question coming in our studio is about the Form 1A. Okay. We're told that some persons are able to print even the colored version online. So if you have people with 20 of this in their possession, does it make it a crime? No. It doesn't. No, because if you print it, you have not registered. Okay. If you print it online, you have not registered. You print, you complete, you have to necessarily come to your registration center. Because we need to take your fingerprint, we need to take your picture. And the officer there at the center will need to endorse your form. Okay. So it's not enough to print it. We wanted to facilitate the process. So if you feel you can download and fill everything and you come, we don't have to refill the form. We just make sure everything is well done. Then the officer will thumbprint or thumbprint, will sign and you also thumbprint. And then you move on to the second table where your biographic data will be taken, your biometric data will be taken. And so that will help us move faster. So unlike you coming and then you have to be interviewed from start to the end. Okay. It takes quite a bit of time than compared to when you have done it already. We only go do a cross check, make sure it is done. It saves time, but that's just about it. Just to facilitate the process. It's not so different from those who come here. You have to come here anyway and go through the process before you get your card. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thanks so much for the clarification. Welcome. Okay, so you just heard the Director of Training for the Electoral Commission, Michael Boydu, taking us through the process and then also answering some very crucial, questions for us. He says that after the first phase of the registration exercise, about 2 million people have registered. He's expecting this number to go up as they go ahead, with the registration exercise. He is giving the Electoral Commission 85% to 90% rating. Hopefully, we'll be keeping our tabs on the registration exercise, and we'll see if after the registration exercise, that mark will still be around 85, 90. Over to you in the studio, Roland.
Maxwell, that was a good one and very elaborate and comprehensive there. Speaking to Michael Boydu, who is Director of Training for the Electoral Commission, and we'll bring you more insight into all these subsequently. And we do know that if we have to move on, we expect that the NDC and its presidential candidate, former President John Dramani Mahama, to announce their running mate today. And we do know, based on what the speculation and the insights we're getting from top members of the leadership, that we're likely to have a choice among Professor Jane Nana Agyemang, who was a former Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, former Minister of Education, and then also move on to UN consultant, also consultant to the World Bank, had been a presidential staffer or aide over the period within the Atamials and John Dramani Mahama administration, Dr. Nimoy Thompson, and a couple of others, a brother of former President Professor John Evans Atamials. Dr. Kadma Mills is also one of 3 that have been billed. So likely to be one of 3 of them. And as much as possible, when we get this news well confirmed after the National Executive Council of the National Democratic Congress have a sitting, we will give you that breaking news. But speculatively, this is the information we're picking from members of the top leadership of the NDC. And as much as possible, we'll let you in on the current state as it is. And we do know Professor, again, Jane Nana Agyemang, a former Minister of Education, also a UN consultant with the World Bank, former presidential advisor, Dr. Nimoy Thompson, and then Dr. Kadman Mills, also with the World Bank, or used to work with the World Bank as well, all in consideration for one of that important job for the 2020 presidential election for the opposition NDC. When we have that confirmed, we'll let you know. But straight away, let's take you to Kumasi, where we have Nana Senso Mensah at one of those registration centers. Nana Senso Mensah, what can you report for us, and where exactly are you?
Hello. Right now we are here at the Holy Spirit Registration Center here at Asawase. And over here we have 3 centers over here. You could see the line behind me. And everybody is busily doing what he's supposed to do, talking of the party agents, talking of the Electoral Commission officers, and then also the registrants are busily in the queue over there, trying to, register as and when it reaches their turn. So it's quite busy over here, so to speak. We've been monitoring other areas, and then for the second phase of the registration, people are quite adhering to the social distancing protocol, and then also most of them are in their nose mask. So over here it's quite peaceful, and then everybody is doing what it's supposed to do. Roland.
And it looks like social distancing, as you enumerated, being observed closely will be the subject of whether there have been contention about who has printed out Form 1A of the Electoral Commission or etc. Have you had any of such incidents either arising outside the registration center?
For now, we haven't acknowledged any of these infractions. Everybody here is coming over here with either the NIA card or the passport. I'm trying to get closer to some of the registrants to, engage them and find out what time they got here, then how the exercise has been to them. Sir, good morning. Welcome to join us.
Good morning.
Please, what's your name?
Usman Anthony.
Right. What time did you get here?
I got here around, let's say, by 4 I was here. 4 a.m. I was here.
4 a.m. So
I was the second person here.
Have you received your card?
Yeah.
Tell me, how was the process?
It was cool. Less than 10 minutes I was okay.
10 minutes?
10 minutes, less than 10 minutes. I was done with my card. Okay. Because I came here earlier and I was the second person, by 10 minutes I was done with the card.
Okay, so of course I could see you holding your passport. So you registered with your passport?
Yeah, passport.
Okay. Okay. I also have some elderly people over here. Let me also engage them. Please, what's your name?
My name is Mohamed Rabiu.
Your name again, sir?
Mohamed Rabiu.
Muhammad Ali. Rabiu. So you seem very serious. You really want to have your card. Tell us the reason.
Okay, because I'm security in this school. I'm coming early. I'm open the gates before I leave the.
Okay, you of them are arrange this place, right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, wait, Penny, when you hear how feel
Okay, me that
Okay. So Roland, this person says he was part of the security people who helped arrange this whole area, and then he really need a card to vote. Let me engage some other people over here too. Sir, your first saying.
My name is Mikael Ibrahim Sani Jaula.
Okay, what time did you get here, sir?
I get here around 4:30 a.m.
Right. Have you received the card?
No, I didn't receive my card because of there is some 1, 2, 3 here. People just fighting here around that time. But now we're solving the problem.
Exactly what happened? Tell me, what's the reason you couldn't get a card?
People said they let their people come standing with them. So they come late, but say because of they let somebody come standing with them, so that's why they want to go first. So that's why bring some 1, 2, 3 things. So, but we solve it.
I could see you holding some forms. What form is that?
Yeah, there's the national identification forms and then a national identification card.
Okay. Yeah. So I hope it's sorted out now.
Oh, we sorted it out.
Okay, Roland, so he told me that there were some hitches when he got here earlier in the morning, but it's been sorted out. So he hopes that very soon he will join the queue and then he will receive his card. Your friend saying?
Your friend is Mariam.
Mariam. When we say Anka call market, but over card didn't ya?
Card in there say so be a penny. Anytime I have a penny, because I had about to do about ice over to Abba. Now only be so intimate. Chanutini have a pay card there, Jato.
There is a open card in the area, and I say opposite the Twaba.
Card is about 1 quarter day. Now about 2 and find every. Because me one next time you want to about 2 and find everything. About 20 in one will be one cabbage and I saw penny cake. You find every. Right. But what did you say? Enima Mariam.
Okay. So this is Enima Mariam, and then she says she's a trader, but she was supposed to have been at the market at this time, but she really need a card to vote. That is why she has, given up going to the market, and then she's here to join the queue, and then so that she can get her own card. But I could see people are crammed over here. The social distancing is not quite adhered to. Let me engage them and find out why they are not adhering to the social distancing. Senior, as a social distancing, most of them is unsro.
Bacho Mpani and my manasian, Cambo, police behind you, police and you say, come to Kakakra, Sanam, police, I said, police or a police
Okay, they're frozen.
I receive.
Okay, he says, although the people are crammed, okay, the people are crammed over here, but he hopes that the police personnel will come here and then ensure that things are orderly done. So this is the situation over here at the Holy Spirit Senior High School. Over here, there are 3 centers over here. So you could see people are quite crammed together, but we hope that the police will come around and help in the ensuring the social distancing, Roland. Over to you at the studio, Roland.
Well, Nana and so Mensa there. And in the meantime, we have to also tell you that as much as possible, we'll take you around many of these centers today, not only on the AM show, but also on news desks, and subsequently we'll do that also on JN Today. But make sure that you get onto myjoyonline.com. You get all those updates, as we also have a lot of these uploads as we bring this content to you on Joy News TV, which is our official YouTube channel, and also through Facebook, Joy News on TV, and then also same for our Twitter handle. We have to take a break. When we come back, we're going to have Inshirado right here to tell us about an upcoming thought leadership event that we have right here with the NCC. Stay with us. Well, when we began this episode of the show, we told you about a dialogue we have. That's a thought leadership department headed by Inshirado, making sure that we have this great event with the National Commission for Civic Education, and it is the National Accountability, Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption program. And this whole dialogue is to make sure we deepen all these conversations related to aspects of governance, transparency, and anti-corruption. And we're doing this also with the NCC, as we told you. We'll have the commissioner, the chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education, Josephine Nkrumah, on stream, and she already is. Good morning to you, Madam Nkrumah. How are you? Great.
I'm well, thank you. How are you too?
I'm good. I'm good. And then we also have here in the studio the head of Thought Leadership and Special Programs. I hope I got the position right. Inshirado. Good morning to you, Inshirado, as well.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. But straight away, let me come to you. You as chairperson of the National Commission on Civic Education. The subject of rule of law and anti-corruption looks to be a subject that we can't ever run away from, especially in these times with all the things that have dominated the media over the last week or two. Why is this very dialogue or program very important for us at this time?
Well, it's very important for us, and if I may quickly say that the ARAP program has a third pillar of environmental governance. So actually, in our ARAP project with the EU, this happens to be our 5th dialogue in the series of dialogues that we planned for Arab-related matters. So in this fifth dialogue, we are emphasizing the issue of environmental governance, particularly in the wake of COVID-19 and what has emerged out of it in terms of our environment, the plastic footprint that we see, because we realize that all of a sudden, plastic has become essential to our daily lives in the wake of COVID. Everybody's using disposable masks, disposable gloves, disposable PPEs, and in its wake comes the menace of plastic, a menace that we're already grappling with, which is even more amplified in the wake of COVID. So the issue at stake in this particular dialogue is to discuss matters relating to that, matters relating to waste management, matters relating to waste segregation, and even the threat of that or to the general public. How are we segregating waste? You come home in the evening, you've used a mask, a disposable mask, you just put it in the bin, somebody sneezes, puts the tissue in the bin, and it goes into waste management. How is waste collected in our country, and what is the impact of that or the risk of that to people in waste management and to the general population at large? We're hearing stories of how in certain suburbs in Accra, we have people washing the face mask and selling them. That is a frightening phenomenon, and these are the matters that we want to discuss in this dialogue. Of course, we need to talk about the green economy as well. We have a lot of stimuli packages that have been, we've heard about, that have been announced, that people are supposed to benefit. How are we going to use these kind of packages to beef up the green economy and ensure that things that we do are more sustainable in the wake of COVID-19, sustainable to the environment, if I may say so.
But let me come to Inshirado here. But this is quite important, and it's coming off on which of the days?
Tomorrow. It's actually going to be live here on the Joy News channel, and it'll also be live on Joy FM from 10 a.m. to 11:30. We're going to have a panel discussion. Quite a number of people, including Madame Nkrumah herself, will be joining via Zoom. Samson Ladi Ayenani will be moderating the entire session. And so from 10 a.m. tomorrow to 11:30, there'll be a panel discussion around the importance of our protocols and the things we're doing around COVID-19 and the environment.
And Madam Nkrumah, if we see that this is coming off virtually and it's all because of coronavirus, that even makes it more imperative that we have this conversation. And the disposal of medical waste and the related issues that affect the environment.
Yes, I mean, it's true. We are all thinking about the preventive measures now to stem the spread. But there are other issues that are cropping up, and that also need equal attention. We need to understand how we're going to be dynamically responsive to waste management systems in this country. And it's a conversation that must begin very quickly in order for us to determine how waste management is actually implemented in this country and everybody's role in this regard. So we're happy that it's it's virtual, because then everybody can join in on the conversation, listening via Facebook, and we're happy to be partnering Joy in this regard, because we know the kind of reach you have, and we're happy to see that this conversation would have all of us, plugged in, understanding the issues and contributing to it as well.
Inshira, as we wind up, who can join and where will they join from?
Well, we will be live on TV and on radio and across all our digital platforms. So on Facebook, we'll be streaming on Facebook, we'll be streaming via our YouTube channel. And you can send your questions and comments right down on the field, and we will be able to curate all of those comments and questions that come in and field it to the experts who will be joining Samson on the conversation tomorrow. So it's from 10 a.m. tomorrow to 11:30 on Joy News, on Joy FM, and all our digital platforms.
And that saying, Madam Josephine Nkrumah, who have been supporting you in this great initiative that you've been doing?
Oh, we've been supported by the European Union. In fact, this is funded by the European Union. It was under a project grant for a 4-year period, anti-corruption, rule of law, and accountability with a prong on environmental governance. So I think we're in our 3rd year of ARAP now, and it's been absolutely phenomenal. I think I must also add that the conversation is also open to people who would prefer to be speaking Akan. So we'd also have it on Adom, is that right?
That's correct. Exactly a week after the, exactly a week next Tuesday, we'll be having the same conversation on Adom Television, also live on Adom FM. So we're able to give everyone an opportunity to be able to freely contribute. Of course, Akan is the most widely spoken language apart from English in the country. So we hope we can reach a lot more people that way.
All right. So, Madam Josephine Nkrumah, thank you very much for your contribution this morning to this. It is the National Accountability Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Dialogue comes off tomorrow. And I'm hoping that once you stick and stay right here and for all our platforms, for English especially, and the next week for the local language services, Adom and the rest of the subsidiaries in the group, you get all the latest updates. And Josephine Nkrumah is the chairperson for the National Commission for Civic Education, doing great work. You can see her hopping from studio to studio, defying even the threats of the tongues of the virus, corona itself, and just trying to get great education to all of us. We thank you so much for the good work you're doing, and you also, Inshirado, for the great leadership for the department that you had.
Well, when I have guys like you working with me, it makes life easier. So thanks very much.
That's flattering. I don't help you in any way, but we all have to do it complementarily.
That's right.
Great. Let's move on. When we come back, we'll bring you all the latest updates of showbiz. Stay with us.